Hey, Rocket, it's Mrs. Wilkenbush. Hey, I need to apologize. Someone told me that sometimes my videos are a little glitchy, and I apologize. I don't know how to fix that. So I'm trying something new today. I've got an earpiece in. I'm hoping that that'll help kind of prevent some of the glitchiness, but I apologize. Bear with me. But the good news is you can read it as well. We're continuing our book club study today with Galaxy Games, The Challengers by Greg R Fishbone. We are going to be doing chapters 16 and 17 today. Can't wait to find out what happens today. Kiruna, Sweden. For the first possible flight from Earth, a private jet brought Tyler and his family to Kiruna, Sweden. An old airport there had recently reopened as a European launch site of the Falcon Space Lines, a company that eccentric billionaire Stefan Falconer founded to bring wealthy tourists on joyrides into orbit. Tickets on the Falcon 1 are usually $1 million and up, the pilot told them. I hope you've brought your checkbook. The plane was met on the tarmac by a man whose bright yellow turtleneck sweater clashed with the spikes of rust-red hair on his head and beard. As Tyler's family stepped down the metal stairway, the bearded man offered to help carry their luggage into the spaceport. "Tip him $1," Tyler's mother whispered as she pressed a wrinkled bill into Tyler's hand. Tyler offered him the money, but the man just laughed. "No thanks, mate. I've already had more portraits of George Washington than I know what to do with." "I don't understand," said Tyler's mother. "Who turns down money?" "Someone who doesn't need any," said Tyler's father. "Stephen Falconer, I presume." "Guilty as charged," said the multi-billionaire with a wink. Amanda shrieked, "I can't believe it's really you. I love your lip gloss so much." Mr. Falconer rubbed a finger across his lower lip. "I didn't think I was wearing any." "No, I meant Falcon Fashion's Kiss Goo number 5. She dug a short jar of goop from one of her pockets. "Could you autograph it for me?" "Amanda," Mrs. Sato snapped. "We really appreciate your help, Mr. Falconer," said Tyler's dad. "Tell me, how can your company have a rocket ready so much faster than all the governments of the world put together?" Mr. Falconer laughed. "I can tell you that the Falconer Spice Lines don't have as much red tape as NASA and fewer forms that need to be filled out on a canary yellow paper. Or I could be truthful and say that we already had the Falcon 1 fueled and ready to go for the client of ours. Amy Thrush is so disappointed that you're bumping her from her flight." Amanda shrieked so loud that Tyler felt his skull vibrate at the sound. "Amy Thrush, the lead singer of Traveling Joneses? That Amy Thrush?" "Yes," said Mr. Falconer, rubbing his ears. "She's like my favorite singer of all time. Why don't we send her to meet the aliens instead of my dumb brother?" "Because I'm the one they asked for," Tyler shot back. "Mr. Falconer," Tyler's mom asked, "is your spacecraft safe?" "Mrs. Sato, I trust my own life to the Falcon 1. In fact, I've already have, more than a dozen times. We fly higher and faster than any of our private sector competitors. We can buzz the International Space Station, surf a wave of orbital debris, pay a little satellite pinball, and have your son home in time for dinner." "But can you dock with an alien spaceship?" asked Tyler. Mr. Falconer's wide green eyes twinkled in excitement. "We'll find out, won't we?" Before the flight, Tyler watched a short video about the Falcon 1 and some of the most important parts of space travel: how to wear a spacesuit, how to eat astronaut food, and how to use zero-gravity bathroom. Tyler didn't like the space toilets, Velcro straps, or vacuum hoses, but at least Amanda wouldn't be jumping into this bathroom when he needed it most. After a quick medical checkup, Tyler rejoined his family in the spaceport terminal. They were the only ones there except for a grumpy woman in a pink mohawk who occupied a seat by the viewing window. Tyler figured that she had to be Amy Thrush because of the way she kept looking over and snarling at him. Tyler's mom and dad had tears in their eyes, and to his surprise, so did Amanda. "I know I give you a hard time, but I think you're very brave to do this," she said. "If you don't come back, I'll tell everyone a great brother you were." "What if I do come back?" Tyler asked. She shrugged. "We'll worry about that if it happens." Tyler hugged his family goodbye, then stepped through the gate that led to the Falcon 1. "Welcome aboard the Falcon Space Line's flagship space plane, Falcon 1, said the familiar voice. "I, Stephen Falconer, will be your pilot, navigator, and steward. The space plane will be carried by a mother craft to an altitude of 16 kilometers. That's 2,000 feet to you. Yank. At that point, we will detach and continue under our own power into orbit. Our destination will be a rendezvous with the Madrerian spaceship Tai Sato. You will find an assortment of magazines and comic books in the media compartment in front of you, as well as the best movies Falcon Studios has to offer. Now sit back, put your feet up, and enjoy the ride. The trip started like an ordinary flight in a small jet plane with Tyler as the only passenger. When they were so high that Tyler could look out the window and see the horizon curve like part of a thin blue circle, Mr. Falconer's voice came back over the intercom. The captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt light, the grab your armrest like your life depended on it light, and the squint your eyes shut and pray light. Biting your tongue is optional. Falcon 1 will detach from the mother craft in 15 seconds. Rocket thrust will begin 10 seconds after that. Have a nice day. There was a loud clunk and then a sudden sinking feeling in Tyler's stomach. This was followed 10 seconds later by a thrust that would make the world's biggest roller coaster feel like a gentle merry-go-round. The Falcon 1 rattled and shook. Comic books flew out of the cabinet, and the engine roared so loudly that Tyler could barely hear himself scream. "Don't throw up," said Mr. Falconer. He repeated over and over, "Don't throw up, don't throw up, don't throw up, don't throw up," all the way into orbit. "Okay," Tyler shouted, "I didn't throw up." "Actually, I was talking to myself," said the billionaire pilot. I always forget to turn the intercom off during that part. Low Earth orbit. Tyler spent the next couple of hours floating around the passenger cabin, talking by radio to his family and staring out the window at Earth. Not a picture of Earth or map of Earth, but the actual Earth itself. If his vision were a whole lot better, he would have been able to spot his house as the spaceplane overhead, his school, all his friends looking up at the sky, Eric Parker, Eric's house, the blacktop basketball court in Eric's driveway, and faded X chalk on the sidewalk of the driveway. Mr. Falconer poked his head into the passenger cabin. "Nice view, huh? We call it space at 62 miles up, but that's like sticking your big toe outside of your front door and saying you're in the wilderness." "It's still pretty cool," said Tyler. "Oh, it's very cool," Mr. Falconer drifted to the window. "Being up here changes you. That's why it should be more than just a handful of elites who get to see the Earth from this distance." He tapped a finger against the window to indicate two parts of the world below. "Do you see any lines between that little bit of world and that little bit over there?" Tyler shook his head. "Exactly my point." Mr. Falconer drifted back to the cockpit, leaving Tyler alone with his thoughts. A few minutes later, Mr. Falconer's voice crackled over the intercom. "Take a look out the starboard window, Tyler. That little speck in your fair dinkum. That little speck is your fair dinkum alien spaceship." "Really?" Tyler pressed his nose against the glass. He thought he could make out the pinpoint light above the blue arc of the Earth's horizon. Finally, Tai Sato, seeing through his own eyes. "I need to fire the thrusters to draw closer and match its orbit. You want to be strapped in for that part." Tyler made a clumsy trip back to his seat and worked himself back into the safety straps. Tai Sato slowly grew larger in the window until it was silver surface blocked Tyler's view of the Earth. A set of robotic arms reached out from the Falcon 1 to the alien ship, and the passenger cabin shuddered as the ships came together. Through the window, Tyler watched a flexible tube bridge the gap between the Falcon 1's airlock and the similar opening in Tai Sato. While he waited, Tyler spoke by radio to reporters on Earth. He was 10 minutes into the third interview before he realized that this reporter was located in Japan. Strangely, it didn't seem much different than talking from orbit to a reporter from the United States. "Being up here changes you," is what Mr. Falconer has said. Tyler thought maybe that was happening to him already. "I have someone who wants to speak to you," said the reporter. "Okay," said Tyler, a boy's crackled voice over the radio. "Hello, cousin Tyler-kun." Tyler blinked. "Cousin Dakai? All Japan wishes you luck." "Thanks, Dakai. I wouldn't be here at all if you hadn't named the spaceship after me." Takai said something that the reporter translated into English. "For your next birthday, that will be hard to top." Tyler had always thought he and his Japanese cousin would never really be friends because they lived in different parts of the world and spoke different languages. Now, none of that seemed to matter. They spoke through a translator about everything that had happened in the last week, and it had felt like they had always been close. "What should I do when I meet the aliens?" Tyler asked. "Give a dramatic speech," said Dakai. "Like what?" "Well, I don't know. But if you have a choice between something dramatic and something not dramatic, go with the dramatic. Gee, thanks, Khan. Combati, cousin, Tyler Khan. I'll do my best, Tyler agreed. Mr. Falconer came out of the cockpit again. It's time. The gauges say there's pressure on the other side of the airlock, so at least we don't need to worry about explosive decompression. Tyler blinked. Explosive what? Like I said, it's something we don't have to worry about. That spacesuit you're wearing should protect against any corrosives in their atmosphere. Once we attach the headpiece, the oxygen recycler will let you breathe. He pulled out a huge metal cylinder from the compartment in the wall. Tyler's eyes bugged out. Do I need to wear that thing on my back? It looks like it weighs as much as I do. No worries, mate. You're in microgravity. It'll be no different from scuba diving in the Great Barrier Reef. I've never gone scuba diving off the Great Barrier Reef, Tyler told him. Really? Well, then never mind. It's really not much like scuba diving at all. I just have no better way to describe it. Mr. Falconer tightened and adjusted Tyler's spacesuit and breathing equipment until he was satisfied that everything was working perfectly. This is really uncomfortable, Tyler squeaked. Arr! I've got my Mickey Mouse voice, and my breathing sounds like Darth Vader's. Darth Mickey syndrome, eh? That's perfectly normal around these parts. Trust me, you're better off breathing through the mask than not breathing at all. Now, if you get into trouble over there, just press this button to radio me, and I'll be through the airlock faster than you can say, mano, mano, nano, nano. He made a gesture with his hand that Tyler guessed was probably from an old-time TV show, and maybe the one that played in Australia. Nanu, nanu, Tyler repeated, trying his best to reproduce the hand signal. He didn't like to think about the hundreds of things. He didn't like to think about the hundreds of things that could go wrong in the alien spaceship, but he did like the idea of being able to radio for help. Thanks for all your help, Mr. Falconer. That's what I'm here for. Taxi service, tech support, and bodyguard duty. Now off with you before the aliens die of boredom from waiting around for you. Okay, Tyler pulled himself out into the airlock door. Just don't go anywhere, Mr. Falconer. I might need a ride home. Tyler floated through the airlock, down the tube, and into the alien spaceship. He instantly felt hard under the floor. The spaceplane didn't have any gravity, but the alien ship sure did. The aliens must have brought it back with them. The metal-breathing tank that had always been awkward but weightless on the spaceplane now held Tyler to the deck like a shell-side-down turtle. Tyler flailed his arms and legs but couldn't even roll onto the airlock to escape. Tyler desperately unclicked the straps and squirmed away from the metal cylinder. The mask tore from his face, and he took in a surprised gasp of alien air. It smelled like spicy mustard. Tyler pressed the button to send a radio signal to the Falcon 1. Hello, Mr. Falconer. My mask came off, and I think I've been poisoned. Nanu, 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 nanu. There was no response from Mr. Falconer. Something in Tai Sato seemed to be blocking the radio signal. The only thing Tyler heard each time he pressed the radio button was the sound of a flushing toilet from deeper inside the alien ship. A few quick, mustardly breaths proved to Tyler that the air had enough oxygen, even for hyperventilating 11-year-old. He tried to stand, but the floor was covered in slippery green slime. Tyler fell 3 times before giving up. He was sitting cross-legged in the slime when the door opened. Opened in a nearby wall. A 5-foot-tall purple creature slid through on a ring of tentacles where she could have had feet. There were more tentacles coming out of her shoulders and shorter tentacles on the side of her head instead of ears. The tentacles flailed around as she watched Tyler with all 3 of her eyes. Mafroza? Tyler asked. He had been expecting her to look like a space octopus, but this was nothing at all what he had imagined. She was more like a space squid than a space octopus. Hello, Tyler Sato. We have much to discuss. What took you so long? Chapter 17. Low Earth Orbit. Tyler wondered what he would say to the purple alien girl. Something cool, something historic. What he ended up saying was, "Gee, you don't look like an octopus at all." "Thanks," she said. "What's an octopus?" "It's an earth creature with 8 tentacles, but you have 1, 2, 3, 28. She wiggled them around like snakes. 10-foot tentacles, 10-foot tentacles, 8 arm tentacles, 6 face tentacles, and 4 that aren't any of your business." "Oh." Tyler tried to think of something else to say. You sure got a nice spaceship. Oh, this old thing. She made a strange bubbling sound. It's my parents' diplomatic yacht that I borrowed. Would you like to see the rest of it? Sure. She spun around on her foot tentacles and slid across the floor like a figure skater. Tyler tried to follow, but he slipped on the green slime that covered the floor. He waved his arms, but he couldn't keep his balance. He fell and landed on his back. Lafrosa stood over him. Are you unhurt, Tyler Sato? Yeah, I'm fine. He tried to stand, but he slipped on and fell on his face. You're not much of an athlete, are you? Tyler thought about the one time he scored a winning goal in the soccer game, a winning goal for the other team. Kicked into his own team's net by accident. Not really, he told her. Then you'll have to pretend. Everyone on my home planet believes that you are the greatest child athlete on Earth. They believe we are here because you invited me to a challenge. Tyler gasped. Why would they think that? Because that's what I have told them. She made that odd bubbling sound again. Tyler guessed that was the way that she laughed. Tyler managed to stand and Mafroza let him hold onto one of her arm tentacles. It wasn't slimy like he expected. It was sticky like dried maple syrup. When Mafroza slid across the floor, this time Tyler slid with her. Mafroza showed him the engine room, air pumps, recreation lounge. Then they visited the kitchen. An adult Mafroza's people was banging onto one of the food machines like a pipe metal. At least Tyler assumed he was an adult, since he was a foot taller than Mafroza and he had gray spots on his tentacle. Tyler Sato, this is Technician Nagaro, said Mafroza. Pleased to meet you, Tyler said. Nagatu waved his faced tentacles. The pleasure is mine. I'd rub tentacles with you, but I'm up to my gleazers and machine oil. Oh, that's all right, said Tyler. I have to spay. You speak English very well. English, said Nagatu. Mafroza interposed herself between them. Such a joke. Of course, Captain Tyler knows that the ship has an automatic translation system. Oh, right, said Tyler. I was joking. Don't be upset that I didn't laugh, said Nagatu. Jokes often don't translate well over the ship's outdated translation system. Or am I supposed to be pretending that you have a language implant? You would have one if you were really a great Galaxy Games player like the captain is pretending you are. Tyler had no idea what Nagatu was talking about, so he just nodded. I'm sorry, Nagatu apologized, Mafroza. I'm really bad at being sneaky. Mafroza thought for a moment. If anybody asks, she looks toward another section of the ship, we could explain that Captain Tyler has refused an implant so far because people are shy and solitary. I've told Arturvo that already. Good. Nagatu nodded enough to send his face tentacles flying in all directions. Let me write that down. Mafroza took Tyler's arm with her tentacle and pulled him across the slime-slicked floor. Take care, technician. We will leave you to the important work of fixing the Freen juicer. It was nice to meet you, Tyler called out of the kitchen door. Earst shut behind them. I apologize for the awkwardness, said Mafroza. Nagatu is the person I trust most with my secrets, but even for a technician, he's not very bright. Is that the secret that I'm not the Galaxy Games captain? Asked Tyler. If it is, that's a really good secret because I don't even know what the Galaxy Games are. Yes, I know. We will remedy that situation as soon as a door irst opened and an adult Madronian skated through on wriggling foot tentacles. He was even bigger than Nagatu and a darker shade of purple. So, this is the Earthchild who has challenged the honor of the Madrona. He snapped an arm tentacle at Tyler, who nearly slipped and fell. This must be a joke, the alien scoffed. You can barely stand. Pilot, said Mafroza. This is Tyler Sato. Tyler Sato, this is our pilot, Arturvo. It's a pleasure, said Tyler. No, said Arturvo. There's no pleasure here, only outrage. Your species doesn't deserve to share a galaxy with Maderia. I can't imagine why Mafroza would lower herself to even consider your challenge. That's for me to decide, said Mafroza. She made a whistling sound, and steam shot out of the holes of her face where her nose should have been. You forget your place, pilot. You are my father-parent's servant, but you are not my father-parent. Arturvo lowered his head. As you say, Captain Mafroza. Come this way, Tyler Sato. Mafroza pulled him along with her down the hallway. You can present the terms of your challenge to me in my quarters. All right, said Tyler, though he wasn't sure what the challenge meant. Arturo puffed steam at Tyler with his nose holes. Tyler was glad to be away from him. Mafrosa's quarters had stumps to sit on and a pool of sludge that might have been her bed. Another door led to an alcove that might have been a bathroom, except that Tyler thought he heard faint sound of music from inside. The room was cozy, Tyler thought, in an alien mustard-smelling kind of way. Mafrosa sucked the air into her nosehole. Tyler Sato, I must ask you a favor. All right, Tyler leaned forward to hear what she had to say. There is a disease on my home planet of Madeira. Madeira. I'm going to get that right one of these days, guys. Tyler leaned back away from him. A disease, you say? Mafrosa blew steam through her nose tentacles. I am not contagious, Tyler Sato. I am not one of the sick. I was on a Humbu 3 when my father parent when the disease struck, but the rest of my team can't leave Madeira until we find a cure. Well, that's terrible, said Tyler. The disease is not so bad. Many will suffer, but we do not expect deaths. Our main problem is that the rest of my Galaxy Games team is still under quarantine. There's that phrase again, said Tyler. What are the Galaxy Games? The Galaxy Games are the universally accepted rule set for interplanetary sports, Mafrosa explained. All major conflicts between the worlds are settled by teams of children in arenas across the galaxy. Wait, hold on, said Tyler. If the games are so important, why don't adults play them? In some planetary cultures, adults don't play games. But children always do. For the Galaxy Games to be a true galactic standard, all of the teams have to be the same range of maturity. You would not take on an adult Madurian like Arturo, and I certainly would never challenge your mother parent. She seemed to shudder at the idea. Tyler didn't like where this was going. So your people think there's some kind of conflict between our worlds, and you and I have to battle it out until there's a winner? No, not a conflict, Tyler Sato. They believe that there's a challenge for our slot in the Galaxy Games tournament. Wait, time out, Tyler said. There's a tournament? Mafrosa nodded. The Galaxy Games tournament is the most important competition in the universe, but this time the Madarian team won't able to even show up. If our team has to forfeit, it will be forever shamed. Other worlds will stop trading with us, and we might never be allowed to compete again. I can't let that happen, Tyler Sato. That is why you must challenge me to a game, defeat me, and take an Earth team to the Galaxy Games tournament to represent both of our worlds. Madranian Embassy, Planet Humbaru 3. Incoming Quantum, the chief bureaucrat answered. The ambassador sank weakly into his chair and flicked a speck of slime from one of his armed tentacles. Another trade mission, no doubt. Take a message, Begro. It's from Earth, sir, from Mafrosa. The ambassador's 3 eyes instantly pop open. Route it into my ready room. Of course, sir, the chief bureaucrat tapped a sequence of buttons. By the time the ambassador could slide into his private office, the image of his daughter child was already on the holographic display. Next to her stood a horrible-looking creature with 2 arms, 2 legs, and not a single tentacle. The creature's fleshly-lipped mouth was entirely unprotected by any sort of filter. Its twin oval-shaped eyes sat under the brows of the hair, beneath the eyes and the mouth, a central bulb that held the creature's nose holes. But there were only 2 of them, and they stubbornly refrained from flapping even open and shut like the proper Madrian nose holes did. The ambassador had met dozens of vile-looking aliens in his line of work, but a creature this hideous is impossible to forget. Father parent, Mafrosa said with a respectful bow. The earth creature gawked out from the display. That's your dad? Yikes! And you thought my mother was way scary. Mafrosa gave her earth creature a nudge with one of her armed tentacles. Father parent, she said again, I'd like to introduce you to Captain Tyler of Earth. The ambassador puffed steam from his nose. We've already met. Mafrosa scrunched her face tentacles. I'm sorry, Father Parent. I must have misheard. Did you say you'd already met Captain Tyler? I think I would have remembered that, the Earth Boy said. The ambassador forced himself to study the Earth Boy's expression. He looked as honestly surprised as Mafrosa, but the ambassador wasn't fooled. You dare to issue a challenge to my daughter child after all the trouble she caused me back in Madeira? Really, you have me confused with somebody else, the Earth Boy insisted. The ambassador puffed out another blast of steam. And now you imply that I am the one who is confused? Such audacity. However, the discussion is irrelevant, as I'm sure Mafraza has successfully defended our planet's honor with a victory in your challenge game. There's no dishonor in losing a well-fought battle, Mafroza stated quietly, almost in a whisper. The ambassador roared and flailed his tentacles. In response, the earth creature jumped backward, slid on a patch of slime, and fell flat on his back. Daughter child, am I to understand that your last challenge to a creature that seems unable to remain upright on its own feet? Mafraza helped the earth boy stand again. Father parent, Tyler Sato is one of the most accomplished hot athletes I have ever met. I stand no chance against his keen strategic mind. The earth creature's cheeks turned red. Well, that's nice of you to say. This contest means nothing without the sanction of the Galaxy Games Commission, the ambassador snapped. Actually, we do have the Galaxy Games Commissioner on board, said Mafroza. You do? Asked the ambassador. We do? Asked the Earth Boy. Mafroza stepped back from the hollow and rummaged through her effects cabinet until she found a small glass jar filled with swirling black mist. A pair of glowing red lights appeared from the depths of the mist. Mafroza spoke to the air. Honored Commissioner, I humbly present you with the official scoring sheet from the challenge season game against Tyler Sato, Captain of Earth. The commissioner's red eyes flickered with fireflies inside the jar. There was no prior sanction to this challenge, the commissioner noted, and the game itself was not witnessed. The ambassador watched the Earth Boy's jaw fall open when the commissioner spoke, as if the boy had never heard a gas-based life form before. Challenge season rules allow for certification after the fact if both captains attest to the conditions and results of the game, Mafroza stated. Well, this is true, said the commissioner. His eyes flared bright for a moment before fading back into embers. Mafroza of Madeira, did you come to the Earth territory of your own free will, knowing a challenge might be offered? I did, said Mafroza. I came here freely and lost a fair contest against Captain Tyler Sato. The mist swirled in the commissioner's yard. Tyler Sato of Earth, your world was previously unrecognized by the commission. However, your victory over the tournament class opponent has demonstrated great personal ability. Do you accept the rights and responsibilities accorded to the Galaxy Game captains, and do you agree to bind your will to the schedules of the tournament and all stipulations in the Galaxy Games covenant? I'm talking to a jar, the Earth Boy muttered. I'm talking to a jar with laser eyes and little flashing lightning rods. Tyler Sato, the commissioner snapped. What? Oh, yes, whatever you say, Mr. Jar. Then I hereby accept and affirm the results of this scoring sheet. Planet Earth now occupies Galaxy Game Tournament slot Gizmo 3, formerly held by Planet Madeira, formerly held by the Osmadian Empire, formerly held by the Commission Trust. Thank you, the Earth Boy sputtered. The commissioner continued. The Osmanian Empire will be notified that their oath of fealty has been released. As such, they are no longer bound to support Planet Madeira in matters of gaming, trade, or diplomacy. Ambassador, are you able to bind your world into a new oath of fealty? The Madrinian ambassador allowed a hiss of steam. Tyler Sato of Earth, on behalf of the Madeiran ruling council, I have no choice but to accept your team as our proxy in the upcoming tournament. The words left a bitter taste all along his oral groove. For your sake, I hope you do not let us down. Well, that makes two of us, sir. The earth creature's face had become pale and sickly, and the ambassador disconnected the quantum liquid, seeing Planet Madeira's new human champion spew fluids or lose consciousness. This will be a problem, the ambassador drummed his tentacles and thought. Bagru, connect me with the representative of the Osmadian Empire right away. Low Earth orbit. Tyler kept staring at the holographic display. Mafroza ended the transmission. The image of the Madeiran ambassador blinked into a single speck that faded away like a distant star. So that's it? He asked. That's it, said Mafroza. She placed the commissioner's jar back into her closet. Tyler gave the closet door a suspicious glare. What was that cloudy thing in the jar? That was a commissioner, Mafroza explained. They serve as referees and administrators for the Galaxy Games. But do not worry, the commissioner cannot hear us now. She gave her armed tentacles a thoughtful thumping against the desk. Tyler Sato, are you sure you have never been to Madeira? Tyler stared at the alien girl, who casually zipped from world to world, while Earth's most accomplished astronauts hadn't even made it as far as their own moon. He pretended to give the question a serious consideration. Madeira. No, I'm pretty sure I've never been there. The alien girl nodded. Then Father Parent must have mistaken you for somebody else. I've been watching your planet's toilet frequency video broadcasts, and it's often difficult to tell you apart from each other. No offense. None taken. So what happens now? I don't know what Gizmo 3 slot is. I don't know how to be a Galaxy Games captain. I don't even have a team. There is time before the start of the tournament for you to learn and prepare, and I'm sure Father Parent will allow me to stay long enough to help your team. It will provide a good excuse for me to avoid returning to Madeira. Tyler's head spun as he recalled everything Mafroza told him about his home planet, all other civilized worlds in the galaxy, and sports contests that kept them from teaching each other. Was it such a good idea for Tyler to bring Earth into this whole mess? Maybe this was a big mistake, he told the alien girl. Mafroza narrowed all three of her eyes. Was it a big mistake for me to trust in you, Tyler Sato? Was it a big mistake for me to travel across the galaxy to tell you a secret that nobody outside of my home world can ever know? Was it a mistake to name you Captain of Earth and Champion of Madeira? Yes, exactly, said Tyler, relieved that she understood what he meant. Is it too late to go back and pretend all of that never happened? The alien girl's face tentacles tangled and untangled at the thought. I am so sorry, Tyler Sato. This is a situation that both of our worlds must live with now. And that's the end of that chapter. Whew, that's kind of interesting, don't you think? I can't wait to hear what your book club conversations are going to be like. Until next time, Rockets.